All right. Well, welcome to the My Agent Investor Mastermind July edition. Um, this month, we are going to be doing how to escape your 9 to 5, which I'm super excited about. So let's jump into the agenda here. So usually at these meetings, we go roundtable, introduce ourselves. You say your name, what you do, share the biggest win you've had over the last month, and then your biggest challenge or goal for the next month. I'll go ahead and go first. I'm David Onanian. I am a real estate agent and investor. Biggest win of the last month. I was thinking about this, and it's actually something that I did this morning, kind of off the cuff. I had the pastor of my church actually reached out to me with a foundation problem, and was able to connect them with a contractor and get them a great deal on a bid. So I was super excited about helping them out. They had water in their basement, and hopefully we'll get that resolved immediately. Biggest challenge or goal for the next month. For me, it's getting this rehab in Baldwin wrapped up. We're about 2 months into it, so we're in the final 30-day stretch here. Hopefully going to get it listed by this time next month. So that's the biggest goal for me for the next month. Josh, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Josh Epley. This is my second month in a row attending this meeting. So I was on the call last month when you did the, oh gosh, I just looked at my notes, how to estimate a rental for cash flow.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, and like I mentioned last time, I'm kind of new to getting into these REI meetings. So I really appreciate the opportunity to learn more. I have 6 rental properties in and around the St. Louis area. And my biggest win of this last month, it's actually in process right now, is a refinance on one that was kind of using the BRRRR strategy.
Sweet.
And I just got notification this morning that the appraisal came back about 15% higher than what we thought our ARV was going to be.
Wow, that's
So
awesome.
yeah,
Great
really
news.
excited about that.
Yeah.
And then my challenge is for next month is actually I have a house in South St. Louis, South City, that I've been in the process of rehabbing for a while. And I finally got a tenant lined up, but I'm not completely finished with the project yet. So I'm hoping that, that's going to be a big, just trying to make sure I get everything finished over the next like 5 or 6 weeks, because they're wanting to move in late August. So that's going to be my
Sure.
challenge.
Well, cool. Well, cool. What do you think? What do you got left to do in that project? Do you think there's?
It, the majority of it's just putting everything back together. I got,
Yeah.
it's a few final touches in the kitchen, and then the bathroom needs to be pretty much everything. It has a tub and shower, but it needs everything else.
Sure.
And flooring here and there, but the majority of everything else is finished.
Cool.
We should be able to make it.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great to hear on the appraisal too. I had a good appraisal too. I had a property in Hazelwood that I was refining. I think it was like 2 weeks ago, and the appraiser met me out there, and it was so funny. He's like, "So what are you trying to get out of this?" And I thought it was a trick question. I was like, "Maybe 115." He's like, "That's what I'll write down." I was like,
Oh, wow.
"Okay." I never had it
Yeah.
that easy before, so it's like
I've,
I came with all this paperwork to give you to show you this, but
man, yeah, it's kind of a little bit concerning how easy it is. I've been through
yeah.
this 3 or 4 times now, and this last time it was almost way too easy.
Mhm.
And he kind of asked me the same questions, and then he asked, I shared with him a list of things that I have done to improve the property, and then I sent him. I was like, I'm hoping to get somewhere around 105, 110, and it came back at 115, which I needed 100 to. Really, I was just trying to refi to get a lower interest rate, because
Yeah.
rates are so good right now. And yeah, I was kind of shocked.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. And it's something to watch out for. You hear that the lending gets so easy, and that's kind of what got us in trouble in '08. So
Yeah,
it's kind of nerve wracking what could be around the corner, but,
I
you
agree.
know, just got to pay attention to it and try to
I
stay
know.
ahead of it.
Yeah, not over leverage for sure.
Yeah. So this month, quick tip. I'll try to fly through these. How to escape your 9 to 5. Um, Josh, do you have a 9 to 5?
I do. Yeah, I'm a
Okay.
production planning manager at Millipore Sigma, a
All right.
chemical company in St. Louis.
Would you like to escape your 9 to 5, or do you like it?
I mean, that's the long term goal.
Okay.
Yeah, I would definitely like to retire early, or you know what I mean, like walk away from regular corporate work at some point.
Sweet. All right. So this question's for you then. What is keeping you at your job right now?
It's probably just the kind of the comfort, the ability, knowing that it's there. Not really, the real estate thing is it has its ups and downs, some uncertainty, things like we just talked about.
Yep.
So just the stability of it, I think, is the main thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that was big for me. Is, you get paid every 2 weeks, and there's no doubt about it. That was nice to know. And
Mm-hmm.
real estate is completely at your making. You got to make your own dollars. Hey, Michael, I saw you join. Welcome to the call. Appreciate it.
Excuse me, sorry.
Oh, you're fine. Finishing up dinner?
Yeah, or attempting
Yeah, I
to.
just had. Well, we're talking about escaping our 9 to 5s. Do you have a 9 to 5 as well, Michael?
Not really. I mean, kind of. So I have a kind of a weird story.
Sure.
I've gone. I've been investing in real estate for a very long time, over 20 years already, and I went from a corporate job to being retired at 27 to now getting so bored at that I decided to move back
Nice.
and actually start working again. It's more of a uh, it's less of a 9 to 5, and it's more of like I do like passion projects now. So like I build and start companies because that's what I like to do, not because I have to.
Well, that's awesome. Well, you're already living your life on your terms, so that's good. That's awesome. But for most most of the people that I know, and a lot of my friends and family, we were stuck in a 9 to 5 that we didn't like. And what is keeping you at your job right now? Josh talked about some of those elements. For me, like the biggest thing was paying the bills every month. Like I had to pay the bill. So I had to have that paycheck that was coming in. And real estate was this huge unknown. I didn't know if I was going to make money. So how was I going to pay all these bills I had to pay? So the biggest thing was basically all the debt that I had from this corporate lifestyle of 10 years in a 9 to 5, and I was getting raises, and every time I got a raise I would buy nicer things. So we upgraded our house, we bought new vehicles, we bought a boat, a jet ski, we bought a lake house. And by the time I'm at the end of my career here, every dollar of my paycheck that's coming in is going out the next day to pay the bills. So that's what was keeping me at my job. And one of the things that I found, when you think about trying to get out of your 9 to 5, you think about having to make all this money to replace your income. But actually, one of the first steps to this is that elimination is actually way more powerful than addition. And what I mean by that is if we can eliminate debt, if we can eliminate payments that you have right now that's keeping you in your 9 to 5, it's going to be way more powerful, way more faster than adding more income to the equation. So elimination is greater than addition. And what I found was the best way to eliminate debt is through something Dave Ramsey coined as the debt snowball. And the way the debt snowball works is you take all of your debts and you list them down on paper by the balance. You find out every single balance of all your debts and you order them based on the lowest to highest balance. I don't care what the interest rate is. You order them lowest to highest balance and you start paying them off in that order. So the lowest balance debt gets paid off first, the second lowest gets paid off second, so on and so forth, which was totally just foreign to me because I had all these different types of loans. And for instance, I had, at the time I read this, I had a car loan that had, $6,000 or $7,000 on it. It wasn't too high at this point, but my interest rate on it was like 2%. And I had always bragged to my friends and family that I got this great rate on my new truck. And, it's basically free money, 2% interest, free money. So like I was in no way, shape or form going to be paying off this debt. And this, by the way, was my lowest debt at the time. I had student loans that were like 6, 7, 8% interest. And so those were the ones that I was targeting to pay off first because they were much higher interest rates. But when I read Dave Ramsey's book and learned about the debt snowball, I said, well, let me give this a shot. This guy has helped so many people get out of debt, become financially free. Maybe he knows something that I don't. So I paid off the truck, was the first thing that I was able to pay off. That was my lowest balance debt. It was also my lowest interest debt. So I was really, really uneasy about it. I wasn't even sure about it when I hit the pay button that was the right move to make. And immediately the next time my payment was due for the truck, it was immediately evident to me that was the correct move to make. Because I had this $6,000 balance and I had the real low interest rate, the 2%. But this monthly payment, I think it was like a 5-year loan or something like that. The monthly payment was $500. And so every month I watched $500 come out of my paycheck, which is a huge chunk of change. And so immediately the next month, there was no more $500 coming out. And I was like, holy crap, that moved a major lever. And had I waited and saved up, 15 or 20 to pay off my student loans that had the highest interest rate, it took way longer to get any kind of momentum on this thing. So immediately I had an extra $500 now. And now the extra $500 a month can now be saved up to pay off the next highest balance debt in the order. And so that's how I did it. And it's really, really powerful. It's something that I underestimated was the mindset shift that happens when you start crossing things off your list. It's just huge. Even if you have like this, really low interest debt, just go ahead and pay it off because now it's gone and it's done with and you never have to pay for it again. So I'm a huge fan of this. This actually is like step 2 in a 7-step process that Dave Ramsey has. I'll go ahead and share all the steps with you just so you know the full steps here. But so he has coined this thing as the baby steps, and these are the baby steps to get out of debt for good and become, financially independent. So baby step 1, he says, is to save up $1,000 for an emergency fund. This makes a lot of sense to me. A lot of people don't even have $1,000 available to them. And so it puts a lot of stress on them if, something happens, like they have a health scare or they blow a tire in their car and they need to make a repair. They don't have the money to cover that. So having $1,000 just sitting in a bank somewhere can take a lot of pressure off somebody. So that's baby step 1. Baby step 2 is paying off all debt except for the house using this debt snowball that we described earlier. And then baby step 3 is saving up 3 to 6 months of your expenses in a fully funded emergency fund. And so what this step entails is that you need to look at your monthly expenses and add them all up. What amount of income do you need to live your lifestyle the way you're living it right now? Maybe that's $2,000. Maybe that's $5,000. Maybe that's $10,000. Whatever that monthly amount is, save up 3 to 6 months in a savings account somewhere, so you have this emergency fund. So if something happens and you can't, make it on your own or get any income, you can tap into this and figure things out in 6 months. Most people can figure out a path to fixing their business in 6 months. So that was one of the steps that I did next. After I paid off all my debt except for the house, I went to baby step 3 and I saved up 6 months of expenses so that I know, if something terrible happens, I can make it another 6 months and not have to change anything about my lifestyle. So actually, after I got through step 3 is when I was able to actually feel very comfortable about leaving my 9 to 5. But beyond that, baby step 4 is to invest 15% of your household income in your retirement. And if you're investing in real estate, you're most likely covering that 15%. So I like to think that my rental properties are also for my retirement. I mean, they're not going anywhere. They're providing me income today. They're going to be providing me income when I'm retired as well. So the 15% of household income, it's mainly directed to people that aren't investing in real estate. But baby step 5 is to save for your children's college fund. And this is funny because I also commingle this with real estate too. So I have 2 children, 4 and 1 are their ages. And I'm in the process. I've already refied one of my rental properties into a 15-year note back when my son was 3 years old. And so when he's 18, I'm going to have that property paid off, ready to pay for his college. And I'm in the process of refining another one right now into a 15-year that is going to pay for my daughter's college. So it's kind of like I'm working real estate into these baby steps. So that's baby step 5. And then baby step 6 is paying off your home early. That's kind of what I've been working on lately. Trying to throw some extra principal at my primary home, get that balance down, and eventually get paid off, because that's my biggest bill that I have right now every month is my primary house. So as soon as I can get that paid off, like, pretty sure there will be a lot of extra income to be able to free up. And then baby step 7 is just basically continuing to build the wealth and be able to give it. And so when you become financially independent or become financially free, you'll have a lot more to give and be able to grow. So those are the baby steps. And then here are some of the steps that I've came up with to escape your 9 to 5. What do you need to do? So number 1 is to define. And when I talked about reducing your debt, those are almost kind of like the pre-steps that you want to do. That's going to make this process a whole lot easier. Because if you can start reducing your debt up front, it's going to be a whole lot easier to be able to escape your 9 to 5, because you're going to need to add a lot less. And we're going to talk about the addition in just a minute. But number 1 is define. And when I say define, it's why do you want to leave? Why do you want to leave your 9 to 5? And for me, I wanted to leave because I had no passion for what I was doing. Every Monday morning, it was a struggle to get out of bed and go to work in a job that I didn't feel like doing. And I feel like so many of my friends, so many family are in that same exact scenario, where they're just working the Monday through Friday to make it to the weekend. And that's exactly where I was. So define why you want to leave your 9 to 5, and then start defining what is giving you pain and what's giving you pleasure about that. So there's certain reasons why you're still at your job. And Josh kind of alluded to this earlier, and I was in the same situation. Like, one of the pleasures of being in my job was that every 2 weeks I knew I was getting paid. And so I had all these bills, and I knew that the paychecks were going to come in. and pay the bills. Of course, I did have the risk that I could get laid off, and there was tons of rumors that were going on in the big corporation that I worked for. So that kind of knocked that down a notch. But the pain of that was looking out into the future and seeing that I had no real path to retire, before they were saying it was normal to retire. And, and all the financial advisors, all the retirement advisors are telling me that, oh, you want to get ready to retire at 65 years old. And that seemed like an eternity for me. And it caused a lot of pain when I was seeing people some of my coworkers that were turning 65 and saying that they didn't have enough to retire even then. And I watched people with like 30 or 40 years of service with the company end up retiring, and they just they weren't even happy about it because they had reached basically the end of their lives and literally didn't know what else to do. Like, they had this job they went to every single day for 5 days a week, and now what are they going to do with all their time? Because they don't know. They didn't have a plan. They didn't have much runway left after that. And it was really sad to see that. And that kind of caused a lot of pain for me. And one of the things I learned as I was doing some self-development is that if the pain outweighs the gain, that's when change actually happens. So it's when that pain just becomes so unbearable that you get sick and tired of being in the job, and you get so sick and tired of even being sick and tired. That's when finally the triggers happen that you're going to make the change to get out of there. And that's kind of what happened to me. So you want to define these things, you write them down, and make sure you know why you're leaving, what the pains and the pleasures are, and what levers you need to pull there to be able to make it happen. And then number 2 is prioritize. And this has to do with, okay, what are the things that you need? If you didn't have a job where you work 9 to 5, what are the things that you need? Well, you're going to need income of some sort to feed yourself, to clothe yourself, to shelter yourself, right? So how much income are you going to need? So you need to prioritize this and write it down. You also need to come up with budgets. How much are you going to spend for your food? How much are you going to spend for your housing, your clothing, your groceries, all that stuff. And we're going to prioritize what you need. And then number 3, you're going to plan. So you're going to create a plan that enables you to make all these things that you've prioritized on your list. So for instance, if I said that I need $1,000 to pay my rent or pay my mortgage every month, I need a plan. What am I going to be doing when I leave my 9 to 5 to make sure I have that $1,000? And for me, it was making sure that I had enough rental properties to create that amount of money. And so basically when I prioritize, the number one thing I needed was a shelter, a roof over my head. So I'll figure out how to get food later, but I need somewhere to stay. And so let's say I needed $1,000 for that. So the first thing on my plan is to figure out how to make $1,000 a month after I leave my job. And so getting enough rental properties that are going to cover that amount of income every month was the first item on my list. So coming up with the plan on how you're going to meet every single one of those priorities when you leave your 9 to 5. And then number 4 is just taking massive action on that plan. And so if one of the quotes that I love is change nothing, nothing changes. And so we can learn all this information, we can read all these books and study all these things, but if we don't take the action, nothing actually happens. So taking massive action is like the huge last step to all of this, to putting this into play. Now we're going to talk about the addition. So we talked about how elimination was actually more powerful than addition. So we want to try to do elimination wherever we can first, because it's going to make the addition a lot more easier. We're going to not have to add as much income to cover ourselves if we've been able to eliminate stuff. So how do we add, in the case of My Agent Investor, in the case of me, I'm a real estate investor. So I like to add cash flow through rental property. I love rental property because it's passive income, right? I can do a little bit of work up front. I can go buy a property, go put a tenant in it, And now every time I go to sleep, I'm making money, and checks are showing up at my house every single month. And I don't have to show up to the job. I don't have to clock in. I don't have to answer a bunch of emails and be on a bunch of meetings. Like this was the way for me to figure out how to do this. So um, it's an excellent way to try to escape your 9 to 5 is acquiring a bunch of rental property. So there's 2 ways to do it. We'll show you both. So one is just being a turnkey rental investor. So this is buying rental properties that don't need any work. I'm going to go out and buy a rental property. It's going to be rent ready when I buy it. It might have a tenant already in it paying rent. Some of those do. Other ones will be vacant. You'll put a tenant in there and you'll be off to the races. So that's a good method for beginners. Somebody that's not done this before, it makes it very easy to be able to get into the game and get started right away. So that's turnkey rental investing. Typically we're putting down 20% to buy a turnkey rental. We do have lenders that'll do 15% on 30-year fixed rate loans. So that's actually pretty good too. So you can get in at a 15 clip. But the second option, the one that I used, because I was in a hurry and I didn't have the time to be putting down 20% every time, is something called BRRRR investing. And BRRRR is an acronym. It stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. And you do them in that order. And what ends up happening is when you buy a property, and I just put an offer on one today, and so I kind of share the numbers on it for you. So I put an offer on this property. It's a $51,000 offer. And the property, by my estimation, need about $24,000 worth of work. So all in all, 24,000 plus 51, I'm in it for about $75,000. Now, the reason I came up with those numbers to offer them 51 is because I think I can get an appraisal one that's fixed up at $100,000. And when I get that appraisal, I can refinance it at 75% of the appraised value, giving me a $75,000 loan on the property, basically returning all the capital into my pocket. And then now I've got a cash flowing rental property, and I can go out and use that same capital I used to buy that one to go buy another one. And so that's BRRRR investing. And that's one of the strategies that I like for newer investors to scale up quicker. Now that's against Dave Ramsey's advice. Dave Ramsey would love to have you only pay cash for rentals, which I understand. That's always going to provide some sort of risk for you. But I like to argue that if you're 75% loan to value, that's a pretty big equity clip there. Even in the Great Recession from 2008, 2009 to 2012, the real estate market did not drop nearly 25%. It wasn't close to that. It was, more, I think 12% was the lowest it went during that time period. So, and even if it was going to have a major crash, let's say we had a major crash in values in this area that I'm investing in, crash 25%. What's going to happen to the rental market there is you're going to have more renters, because now people are upside down in their homes. They can't own anymore, but they still have to live somewhere. So they're going to rent. So actually rents don't get affected that much when we have a recession. So I am pretty on board with the BRRRR investing strategy as long as you are smart about it and as long as you're making money. One of the false beliefs about buying a bunch of rental property to escape your 9 to 5 is that you need a bunch of rental properties, that you need like 100 units or something like this. Like, this is completely bogus. Often you just need a dozen rental properties, and that's how I did it. And here's what the numbers look like here, because I'm kind of a numbers junkie when it comes to this stuff. So on my average rental property, which is done via the BRRRR method, so we are basically 75% leverage when we start out in these properties. Now, as things have progressed, I've started to pay down, refinance, and, get lower leverage numbers on here. But when you start out, I'm looking for a rental property that I can cash flow $300 a month with leverage. So I'm, you know, if I've got a property that appraised for 100 grand, I've got a 75 grand loan on it. And it's cash flowing $300 a month after my loan payment, after the insurance payment, after the taxes payment, after any utilities that I'm covering, after any maintenance items, after any vacancies. So all that's covered, and then I'm $300 ahead. So I'm getting $300 in monthly cash flow with all of those, all of your expenses basically covered in there. And so if I have a dozen units, if I have 12 units at $300 a month, I'm looking at a monthly income about $3,600, which doesn't sound like a lot. And if I take that over a year to give you like a yearly income number, it's $43,200. Now, most people are like, well, Dave, how am I supposed to live off of $43,000 a year? And I'll tell you, it didn't sound too appealing to me when I got started either, because I was making six figures in my 9 to 5. But let me tell you about the tax advantages, because this makes a huge difference. So tax advantages, there's 3 of them that come into play when you have rental property. So one is deductions, and this is stuff like repairs done to your property, but it also takes it farther as, okay, now it's your mileage. Now it's you driving around the city, checking on your rental properties or looking for rental properties. It's your gas, it's your wear and tear on your vehicle. It's you know, if you buy an iWatch, it's your watch, because you need that to communicate with the real estate professionals and the property managers. It's your phone. It becomes all these things that now become deductible expenses because you're using them to run your real estate rental business. And so all these other deductions that you normally may have had in your personal life anyway, are now being deducted from any kind of income that you have. And that's not a huge one, but it's a nice bonus. And the biggest thing here is the depreciation. And the IRS allows you to depreciate real property. So not the land that it sits on, but the house and everything inside the house, and the concrete driveway and the sheds and the garages and all that stuff. All that can be depreciated. And for residential real estate, it's depreciated over 27.5 years. And so the example I like to give you here to see how this works is that if I've got a house, a rental house, and it's making $300 a door for 12 months, so that's $3,600 a year in rental cash flow that I got coming in. This is income coming in beyond all my expenses, right? So normally I'm going to have to pay taxes on this money, right? But IRS is allowing me to depreciate my property. So if I want to fully appreciate that $3,600, you know, times this out by 27.5 years, and I get a $99,000 number. So that what that number means is that if my rental property costs me $99,000, I can now, let me mute you, Chanda. If my rental property cost me $99,000, now that $300 a month cash flow that I'm making is completely tax-free. It's completely wiped out by the depreciation of the property every year. So it's an amazing lever to pull when it comes to depreciation. And then number 3 tax advantage is deferrable. So let's say my $99,000 rental property in a few years appreciates to $150,000 property. Now, normally if I was going to go sell the $150,000 property, now I got a big $50,000 gain there that I'm going to have to pay a bunch of taxes on. But the IRS also allows you to defer the taxes through a 1031 exchange. So now I can take that $50,000 and go buy another rental property. Maybe I buy it all cash this time. But I can take that money tax-free and go put it into a similar asset, a similar rental property. So those are the huge tax advantages to owning rental properties. And what that means to you is that $43,200 income is really like making about $75,000 a year. Because taxes you'll normally pay, and this is what I was in when I was at the end of my career here, I was in the 28% federal tax bracket. I was getting 6.2% Social Security taxes withheld. I was getting 1.45 on my Medicare withheld, and I was paying about a 6% Missouri state tax. So overall, every dollar I was making in my six-figure job, I was getting taxed at 41.65% my taxes. So now I can get 43,000 tax-free because of deductions and depreciation. It's really like making $74,035 a year. So there's huge benefits here to having rental property and being able to take advantage of all of those tax deductions. All right. And that's all I got for escaping the 9 to 5 for the quick tip this month. Hope it added value to you guys. But I do want to hear from you what questions you have. What do you guys want to talk about? What's on your minds this evening?
David, I guess whenever you were going through that, one one of the slides that you had was on the deductions, and that's one area that I feel like I struggle with just a little bit. I guess kind of understanding what all can be classified as deductions, and maybe I don't have the best CPA, I don't know. But I don't have a real good grasp on that. You kind of mentioned something as simple as your watch, and I guess I've never really thought in those kind of terms. So I guess it's not really so much of a question. It's just something that I feel like personally I need to take a closer look at.
Yeah, I've got a really conservative CPA, so him and I have a lot of arguments over this. But basically, it's any, like, you got to think about what is touching your business. So like when you go to work on a rental property or whatever, every single thing that you're doing for this business in real estate that you have, everything that you touch for it should be deductible. So like I'm going to pick up my phone and call the property manager. This phone needs to be a business expense now. I'm going to get in my truck and go drive somewhere. That mileage needs to come off. I mean, it's not huge, but these little things every so often can make a big difference. Like, I'm using the internet. I have a home office. Okay. So we had to go through this exercise where I had to measure out the square footage of my house that I was using for business. And it was about a quarter of my house. So like we discovered that this quarter of square footage of my house was being used to run my real estate business. And so that meant actually now a quarter of my utility costs at home are now being deducted and all this stuff. So it can go pretty far. There's cases where there's some gray areas where maybe it's not worth it to, take the risk of going that far. But one of the examples I gave in another presentation that I have is on an iWatch. And so I was thinking about going out and buying, I don't have an iWatch. This is actually just a Fitbit, but so I didn't write off the Fitbit, but maybe I could have, because I can see the text messages on it. But if I was going to go out and buy a $300 iWatch, that's going to be a business deduction, because that's going to allow me to take calls on my watch and take real estate calls on my watch and see real estate messages and, call my agent, call my property manager, all that stuff. Whereas if I was just a W-2 employee, I have to pay for that iWatch out of my paycheck, and my paycheck already had taxes withheld on it. So I'm paying for the iWatch with post-tax money, versus as a real estate investor, I'm paying for the iWatch and I'm getting a tax break after I buy the iWatch. So that $300 iWatch actually becomes like a $200 iWatch to an investor, whereas the employee had to make more than $300 to come up with $300 on this paycheck. So it makes the cost of certain things extremely different priced.
Yeah, that makes sense. I really need to do a better job of wrapping my head around that and really understanding all the nuances there.
Yeah, I didn't really see the value when I first hired a CPA. it was a big check to write, but like they saw things in there that, I couldn't see because they know all the tax laws and stuff like that. Now I kind of push them on certain little things here and there, but it was definitely worth it to do that.
Mhm. And then I guess the other point I was going to make is I was looking at your numbers with, I mean, I've kind of ran all those numbers myself as far as like how much net cash flow that I would have on a monthly basis, and I'm kind of in that same sort of category as you are there with each property on average is approximately $300 give or take per month. What I find that though that kind of holds us, it feels like it holds us back a little bit, even though we've only been at this for about 4 years and we've made pretty good progress doing it, part-time or on the side, whatever you want to call it. But one thing that kind of always trips us up is that we'll put in all the numbers and we'll have separate categories for maintenance and capital expenses and all those sort of things. And then we're working on one project, so we have like a lot of money tied up in that. And then suddenly something will happen, and it just happened recently where, we had a roof that we had to pay for, and it wiped out. It's a small property. It's old. It'll need maintenance as we go along. So it's like we'll build up a decent nest egg, I guess, if you will, and then suddenly, a roof, $5,000, it'll wipe it out, or wipe out a good chunk of it. And so I'm just trying to figure out like the best way to kind of scale. And I don't know if it's just a matter of time, but to really kind of scale and build and not kind of have those setbacks, I guess, if you will, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. The solution for that, and I know exactly what you're talking about because I just had, I was on vacation last week, and this happens every time I go on vacation, but I had an AC and something else major. I'm trying to figure out what it was. It might have been a roof. It was like an AC and a roof went out in rental property. I was like, holy cow. Like, here's several $1,000s. This is more than my vacation even cost. But the solution to dealing with this, and I had to learn this the hard way, is to just save up enough in an operating fund to have a buffer there that can cover that, because there's going to be ups and downs. I mean, there was times where I had like gross amounts of cash, just liquid on hand in this account. I was like, oh my gosh, the rentals are doing great. But then, all of a sudden the CapEx expenses start all hitting at the same time. And so there's always going to be ups and downs in that. I don't know what the great number is for that. I've heard maybe like 10% of the value of the properties that you have, just have them 10% of that. If you have $1 million worth of real estate, have $100,000 or something like that sitting in their account. I don't know. But yeah, just having enough there to be able to absorb the ups and downs of the CapEx coming in and coming out, and then being able to track it, through your bookkeeping to say, okay, this property has had a ton of problems and they don't seem to be going away. So maybe it's time to sell this one because this one's not doesn't have a great ROI for me.
Yeah. So you have separate accounts set up right now? We just have really the primary just checking account, honestly.
Yeah, it's not separate bank accounts. I actually started with that method, and the bank told me that they're not going to open up any more bank accounts for me. Because I had heard somewhere that, just have separate bank accounts for each property. It makes your bookkeeping really simple. And so that's what I started doing. And then I have US Bank, and they're like, dude, we're not going to open up 100 accounts for you. It wasn't 100, it was like 12. But so yeah, now it's just we have QuickBooks. So it's in QuickBooks. We just tag all the transactions with the property. And so I've got a bookkeeper that, we send the receipts into him and he tags the numbers.
As far as those capital expense, though, do you keep those in a separate account?
No. So we have two accounts for the rental property. So one's an income account. So only money is coming into that account from the renters. And then we have an operating account. So that's where all of our expenses, any repairs, any CapEx items are coming out of that account to pay for. And usually what we do is we take a percentage of the rental income that's coming in and we transfer it over to the operating account so that the operating account is always staying healthy from rents. And then, any type of repairs are being covered by that operating account.
Okay, that's good.
What else you guys got? Chanja, do you have anything?
Hello, sorry for joining late. My alert didn't go off, so I do apologize for the tardiness.
No
But I see it's being recorded, so hopefully I can go back and watch it and listen.
Yeah.
But no questions. I'm really here just to, I guess, be like a fly in the wall. And as I
Sure.
have questions, I'll certainly jump in. But yeah, obviously my interest is mutual here in terms of real estate investing.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for hosting.
All right. Well, Josh, you want to talk about anything else or?
No, I don't think so. Nothing comes to mind. I think it was good.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks guys for joining, and hopefully we'll see you back here next month for a different topic, and hopefully we'll get some more people on live too and have some more interaction. So thanks a lot, guys. We'll talk to you next month.
Thanks. Will this be available on the meetup?
Yeah, we'll put the recording out there for you.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks.
Take care.
You
Thanks,
too.
David.
Bye.